Okay, let's talk about color theory. What I want to show is an approach that I like when I'm selecting colors. And while we do that, we'll look at the different models. Now, looking at this color wheel, it's broken up into segments, but in reality, they are not. So there's millions of colors to select from. There's a CMYK spectrum and there's a RGB spectrum. Now the CMYK is, let's call it limited, because the printing press has a certain way of displaying these colors or mixing these colors as opposed to a display. So let's not get stuck on that. So even though I've segmented these, and this is just for this exercise, so you can see this color wheel is split into cool and warm, and you'll get your primaries, you get your secondary colors, and you get tints as you approach the center. They become more pastel. So there's no hard and fast rules on selecting colors, but you may have a natural gift in selecting and matching colors, or as you may want to develop your skill by following this approach. So why select certain colors? Well, could be a client brief, a brand that you're trying to build and have developed a vision for it, or want to create a new piece of artwork and apply a range of different colors and see how that comes up. So there's multitudes of reasons why you would select certain colors, but let's talk about the structure of color here, and then how we can use these colors to build a color palette, and we'll just touch on Adobe Library, CC libraries that sync across the other software that you can transfer that series of colors. So let's just go to the next page. So what we've got is primary and secondary. Now these are arranged in a triangular approach. No particular reason, but let's say red, or a form of red, blue and yellow primaries, right? So let's say you want to just shift it slightly, and you get let's just select that one and get a little bit of a change, right? So we'll go into secondary, and the same thing applies. Is that you're selecting the secondary colors at their strongest point, at 100%. They're bold and they're rich. As you get closer to white, they become pastel, as you can see. But we're not going to do it this way. So we could have a different range of secondary that differ. So let's say that you're happy with this color selection. So you'll see here that I can actually add this as a palette, create it as a global. What this means is that this selection is set in a way that I can then manipulate in tints. So I'll just show you what I mean. I'll do the blue, I'll do the yellow. So now I have color chips here. I can apply them here, here, and here. And in terms of color, you can see here that if I select all these, I can say, well, I want them at 50% strength. So at 50% strength is somewhere here, right? So if I said, well, that's why I didn't select the tints, because essentially they'd be closer to those, as you can see. So I always like to select them at their richest, and then work with tints. So it applies to secondary. So So let's go to a square selection. So I'm just going to draw a square. Okay, so from this example, what we have is, let's just choose the next panel. Okay, there. Oops. Okay, so we have a quartet of colors based on this example. So if I centralize that, and I can, I'll just reduce it down so it fits. I can move it anywhere and then select. I'll start with a purple, maybe that one there, that one, and that one. Could be that one or that one. I like that one. So you can see I can shift this around and create, and create a whole set. And these are not selected in any particular order. And going by this spectrum here is that, whilst I have a limited selection around here, there could be hundreds of others. So for example, I've selected it here, but I may choose to change it slightly, but it's a starting point, right? So you can affect these and tweak them as you go. So let's go to the next page. Analogous approach. So these are, within a range. So you can choose them this way. They're adjacent on the color wheel, and I'm not going to even choose them at the 100% just to demonstrate that they could appear. Oops, that one. I think I'm there. So you're choosing them adjacent to each other. So let's do that one. And we'll do that one. Okay, so that's one approach. So the next approach is monochromatic, one of my favorites. So this is a selection of colors based on a single hue. So as you can see, I'm going to follow this path here. This is also achieved by, as demonstrated earlier, is that if I create this as a swatch global, I can apply it here and still achieve the same effect. So let's say 50, that's a bit, it's probably about 70, 50 and 25. So you can sort of see that you can emulate that based on your first color. One of my favorites, as I said, complementary. As it states, it's the opposite side of the wheel. So, and you can create some really nice combinations here. I always like complementary because it allows me to choose two colors plus either a neutral tone that helps set them off and pop, whichever word you want to use, highlight, color or pop color. So you can see here, I'd probably go in and pop in a black or a charcoal to then offset it. Whether it's a charcoal and plus a neutral, a really light neutral. So they start to build, and I use these, just to allow these to jump out of the page. So let's go to the next one. Split complementary. So yeah, pretty similar concept as previous. So let's just choose those. Okay, And you could potentially add more to the palette. And we can keep on choosing along this line. So I wonder if I did this, and just as an example, I'll just copy that triangle out. Oop. Let me just switch it around just to look at the theory that it works. So I think it's that color, and that color. Yep, I'm happy with that. So let's keep on moving. And the last one for today is Greyscale. The way I approach Greyscale is, does it have enough contrast between each of the tones? So, you know, is there a black, and is there a mid-tone? What do I want the whole color palette to convert to? So for example, let's say I go to choose this color set, and we'll go here. So if I said, well, I'm really happy with that, but you know, now I've developed a logo or a piece of artwork that, you know, needs to reproduce in one color or gray. So sorry, I've just jumped around there. We'll go to Greyscale. You'll see that there's not much contrast. So the way to get more contrast is to tweak these colors. Or if you're not wanting to change those, then you can tweak these. So the best way to do that is say, well, in Greyscale, my logo will appear with these values. So we'll go 40 and maybe take that and round that down to 20. So there is a correlation between the colors. So when you're reproducing in black and white, or a monotone or one color job, which is rare these days, but there may be a requirement for it. So an alternative is to tweak these. And let's say, you know, we'll add more magenta for that, just a little bit more cyan, and try and change those. Okay, so that could be a bit lighter. And mind you, I am talking about print here as well. RGB may not necessarily be required to Greyscale, but yeah, it's always good to address it. May be faced with that later down the track. So take into account all those combinations. Again, I've lost my place here, so we'll go to Greyscale. So that's much better. It's pretty close. Okay, so that's the way I use Greyscale. And another theory with Greyscale is that when I use the example of a newspaper or a magazine, when you look at a page full of text and images, if you squint your eyes, the blocks of text have a grey value. Now they actually, you know, depending on if it's a light font or a dark font, that will create the grey value, and that's more sort of in line with when you're designing layouts, and not, but has some connection to color weights. So let's look at the final screen, which is a summary. So we've got triadic, we've got square, analogous, monochromatic, complementary, and split complementary, and Greyscale. So there's a whole approach here that you can use. And yes, these are not hard and fast rules that you must use to create a set, but you'll build those skills as you use some of these ideas. And before we wrap up today, just wanted to touch on how I use colors across all Adobe software. So whether it be print design or digital marketing or web design, I can use all these assets across that software through the libraries palette. So here are my three colors. We'll create a new library and we'll just call it color theory, and select the colors that I want to use, and I'll move them into the library. So you can see here I can create a group. Okay, I can rename the group, just call it primary color palette, and I can add other elements here, graphics and fonts. So let's just jump over to Photoshop. You can see I've just quickly put these panels here to demonstrate. So here's a recent library. It already has synced, and there's the library. So if I just select the layer of that element that I want to change, and apply the colors, so there's consistency there throughout all the software, which is pretty amazing. I will touch on libraries and how I use it in another video. So hopefully this color theory discussion helped. Let me know what you think, and catch you next time.